Hello and welcome to the March edition of the Naked Chats. My name is Funmi Ayowole, and we'll be joined by a couple of other people that registered for this event. I want to welcome you and say thank you for joining. This particular month's webinar is titled Dissecting Soul Wounds, and so I will just do a bit of an introduction into soul wounds. I hope to hear your thoughts, comments, when you catch the replay, comments or questions about soul wounds, and anything you'd like to share. Those that registered for this webinar have sent some questions ahead. So in a few minutes, I'll be answering those questions. So as I said, my name is Funmi Ayowole. I'm your soul coach. I'm the lead coach at the Soul Clinic. And within the next, say, 2 to 3 months, we are working towards launching the virtual Soul Clinic. It is a technology platform that will give everyone the chance to access a support coach. If you need someone to talk to at any time of the day, 24/7, regardless of your time zone, you would have 15 minutes to speak to somebody for free. It will also be a funnel for other coaches of different niches. So whether or not the niche is relationships, emotional, mental health, if you need help with your finances, fitness, all parts of your life, you would, on this technological platform, you would have the chance to book and speak to an expert specialized coach. So watch out for that. And if you would love to support in any way, please go to bit.ly, bit.ly/fund TSC. We'll write it at the bottom of this video when it shows up on YouTube. So let's get right to it. As we know, I don't want to belabor the point, but we have set the foundation of knowledge about the soul. We understand that we are living beings. We have a body, that is, we manifest in a body that you can see. We are spirits, we have souls, and we live or manifest in a body here on this planet. And so it's important for us to take the health of our souls very seriously. We cannot afford to take it for granted. And sometimes things happen to us and we experience what we call soul wounds. Just in the same way, physically, you can have a cut, you can have some form of high impact experience on your physical body. You can have a burn, whatever it is, something can happen that is either gradual or immediate and drastic that leaves a wound on your physical body. You can also experience something drastic and immediate or gradual that leaves a wound on your soul. So that's just, I mean, if you think about it, compare the physical with your soul, then you know that soul wounds are possible. People experience soul wounds and the impact of soul wounds on a daily basis. Part of your soul includes your mind, your spirit, part of your soul includes your mind, your emotions, and your will. We have gone over this before. If you need a refresher, please go ahead and click videos that you see before, that is webinars and videos that I have done before. I don't want to spend so much time on it, or listen to any of our podcasts that have been set out before. So that's a recap of what your soul is and the components of your soul. Okay. Now let's go through I would say the descriptions of your soul with the eye of a journalist. My training or my background is mass or communication. I'm a communications major. And so sometimes when I'm looking at things, I always think about them with the 5 W's and H. I don't know whether you guys remember this, if you ever experienced that, but whenever they say you're looking at a news story, you think about whatever it is through the lens of the 5 W's and H. What, when, where, who, why, and how. So at the very most, or least, at the very least, we're going to go through the 4 W's and H of soul wounds. Let's start with the what and the when. I have explained that soul wounds are, they are the results of high impact events, most of the time negative events that take place on your soul, and they leave a damage, they leave some form of scar on your soul. So events cause soul wounds, just in the same way that events, some negative events, also cause physical wounds. So that's the what of soul wounds. Soul wounds are negative experiences and the impacts of negative experiences on your soul. That's number one. That's the what. The when of your soul wounds, or maybe not you, but whoever is experiencing a soul wound, is very important. The timing of a soul wound sometimes, or most times, impacts on the vulnerability of the person. So let me break it down. If you experience a soul wound within your baby to toddler stage, there is, and also depending on the type of the events that happened that led to a soul wound within the baby to toddler stage. So let's say when you were first born all the way to maybe age 4, there is a level of vulnerability because one, you are more open to be damaged. Excuse me. Your mind is still being formed actively. And then lastly, the impact can be deeper. The impact of the soul wound can be deeper in that stage. A wound that you experience from when you are a young kid in your childhood, when you're a young kid to when maybe you are a preteen, is also very, very critical. The timing is also very critical. At that point in time, you still have memories being formed. In fact, I would say that if you experience something within that time frame, it's more dangerous. I mean, people experience events that lead to soul wounds on a wide spectrum of their lives. But I feel like in your childhood formative years, you are more accepting. Your mind is still being formed. The memories are crystallizing. You know, if you think about the things that you have experienced, let's say maybe the first birthday party you remember, most likely you will remember it from when you're like 4 or 5 years old. You may not remember I doubt it is likely that you will not remember your 1-year-old party. You know, that one that in the African culture, Nigerian culture, we take it to the maximum. Oh, we're celebrating a new baby's 1-year-old party. The child cannot remember, or the child will not even remember it when they are 5. The 5-year-old child will not remember their 1-year-old party at that point in time, because then everything is just, you know, is still hazy. That is within the baby to toddler stage. But when you are from 5-year-old, between 5-year-olds and 12 years old, you are actively soaking in memories and experiences. You can remember when you first went to the amusement park. You can remember maybe a song that your mom or dad used to sing very, very often in the house. You have memories, whether painful memories or positive memories. And it's so much easier for these soul wounds to make a lasting impression on your soul. There are also soul wounds that people experience in their teenage years, let's say between 13 to 19 years of age. You know, in your teenage years, other people's opinion of you matters so much. I'm not saying it doesn't matter when you are either older than that or younger than that, but within your teenage years, yes, the parts of the brain are still developing. You are growing into adulthood. You are in between a stage of dependence on the adults in your lives and a strive or struggle for independence. You are thinking to yourself, I want to be my own person, but hey, someone else is paying the bills, or I still have to listen to what mommy or daddy says. If they say I need to wash the dishes, I need to wash the dishes. I cannot disobey them. I cannot say, oh, I don't feel like going to school today. In your teenage years, you are in that. It's a delicate balance. It's a struggle between dependence on the adults in your life and that struggle for independence. Also, in your teenage years, you care what your peers think about you. You care whether you look cool, whether you're accepted, whether people like you or not. You're still forming your identity also in your teenage years. So that's a really crucial time. Anything that you experience can create lasting impressions on your soul. It can have a huge impact. Another stage is in your early 20s. You know, you are maybe in the university or college, you are starting to be more independent, you take more decisions. That stage is also important. And then lastly, when you're 25 and above, if you experience something when you're 25 and above, you may be more you may be stronger. You may have already, if nothing happened to you before that time, you may have formed a solid view of yourself. So things that happen to you may not shake you as much. You're able to, analyze them. You're able to say, what are my emotions? What is the effect? How do I feel now? You may be able to say, okay, what did this person really mean? What do they really want? What's the motive behind what they did to me? Or I'm saying that if you're a fully grown adult that developed well mentally and emotionally, if something happens to you that may has the potential to cause a soul wound in that your adulthood, you are better prepared for it. Okay, so the when of soul wounds is so critical. I hope we understand this clearly. Next, the where and the who of soul wounds is also extremely important. Please give me one moment. Right. So I have some notes here. Okay. So a person can be a witness, current witness or past witness to several atrocities or tragedies in his or her environment. Where those atrocities or tragedies take place is very important. Sometimes it may not have happened to you directly, but if it is close enough to you, you can be wounded by it. Give an example. Let's say if something happened to your mom, she is in your nuclear family, you can be directly impacted by whatever it is. Let's say you are not the one that experienced this event, that this thing happened to directly. You could be impacted by it because the person that it happened to is within your nuclear family. If, as another example, something happened, the same thing, maybe it was the loss of a loved one, maybe your grandpa or an uncle, the degree may be different than if something happened to your mom or your dad or your brother or sister, people that are in your nuclear family. If, let's say, in the church, maybe there is your Sunday school teacher, that's if you were young, or maybe you're a pastor, a sister, or somebody within your religious group. Something happened to that person. Maybe there was a fire incident, as an example, and it happened to somebody within your church, not within your nuclear family, not within your extended family, let's say within your religious group or a close friendship, right? Maybe something happened to your classmate's house, maybe a fire, the same example of a fire, but it happened to a classmate, somebody that is close to you, but not as close to you, not as close as if the person was in your immediate or extended family. The degree of the impact of that wound will vary. So I'm hoping that you both understand, and everybody that will watch the replay understands and is following what I'm saying. If maybe the fire happened within your neighborhood, maybe in your city, and you heard, oh, 20 people were wounded and 3 people died. I'm not saying that you will not be sad, you will not be affected, you will not feel burdened by the thing that happened within your city or your state, or if you heard that in your country or in a state that is not so close to you, so and so thing happened, the impact on your soul will be different. That is the concept of the wear of soul wounds, right? So that's a major thing. The who of soul wounds, whether that soul wound, maybe the loss of a loved one or physical and emotional abuse, maybe if the who is the offender or the who is the offended, whatever the case may be, the who is also important. If the who is your sibling, or if the who is your pastor or your mentor or your best friend in school or your college professor or a colleague at work, can you see the degree of closeness with these people also is important? So the who, whether the person is the offender or the offended, or if it's a loss, if something happened to any of those people, the relationship between you and that person is very important. The closeness of the relationship between you and that person is very important. Okay, so we've laid the foundation of who, what, when, where. So that was 4. I think we did who, when, what, where, right? Of soul wounds. Now, let's go to the how of soul wounds. I don't think that I'll be able to answer the question of why. Why do soul wounds happen? Well, okay, let me try. Soul wounds happen, in my estimation, because human beings are flawed. Human beings are not perfect. There is sin in the world. There's imperfection in the world. Hurting people, that is, those that are hurting, will always hurt other people. It's almost like a vicious cycle that if you've experienced a soul wound, it is almost predictable that if you have experienced a soul wound, there is a high likelihood or possibility that you will inflict a soul wound on someone else. If you are not yet fully healed, there is a high likelihood that you will wound someone else. You will do something that will hurt somebody else. And that's where we get that statement, hurting people hurt people. Hurting people hurt people. It is just, it's a fact of life. And so to answer the question of why soul wounds, it happens because there is imperfection in this world, there's sin in this world, hurting people hurt people. And sometimes people they don't do it consciously. It's because of their background, it's because of what they've experienced, it's because of their mindsets and conditionings that all that happens. And then also life or accidents. We'll get to the sources of soul wounds very, very soon. Life accidents also happen. So some people die, and that impacts on your soul, causing a soul wound on you. As I said, maybe a fire or something, whatever it is, those things do happen. And because life is not predictable, it happens. So that's the why of soul wounds. Now let's quickly go to the who of soul wounds. Sorry, not the who, the how of soul wounds. Now, the how of soul wounds can also be classified as the sources of soul wounds. Remember, we have done 5 W's, and now we are going to the H. We've done who, when, what, where, and why of soul wounds. And now we're going to the H of soul wounds. Number 1, life. Life happens, and life here can impact on your soul if you have experienced the death or the loss of a loved one. Loved one can be family member, nuclear or extended, someone close to you, a friend, a pastor, a mentor, anybody, someone that you regard as a loved one to you. If that happens, it can impact on your soul. It can cause a soul wound. Sickness also can impact on your soul. It can cause a soul wound, because you all know that, well, let me not assume, but there is a connection between the health of your body and the health of your soul. You can, if you have physical health challenges, it can have a way of impacting on your soul, on your mind, on your emotions. If you even have mental or emotional challenges, they can translate or manifest in your body. There is an unshakable connection. I don't want to belabor the point, but there is an unshakable connection between your mind and your body that can have an impact and cause a soul wound. Also, let's say because of life, new life demands, you can be in a new territory. So territory could be maybe you move from what, you change houses, just a simple example, or you change cities. So you are living in Asaba and you start living in Lagos. That in itself, that change of physical environment can cause a soul wound, depending on how fast you're able to adapt, how fast you're able to run with the new program, right? Also, if you change, if you change countries, if you relocate, right? In fact, if you change jobs, let's say there was no, it wasn't a violent discontinuance, so they are not fired, there's no severance, nothing like that, but you voluntarily change jobs and you start working in maybe a new office environment, it can have an impact on your soul. There's so many things. I mean, there's culture shock. There's just the fact that maybe the change was sudden or it was gradual. There's so many things that can impact on your soul, especially with regards to a new territory. Excuse me. The second category of the how of soul wounds are self-inflicted wounds. You can make promises to yourself that you do not keep. As an example, I say to myself, oh, I'm going to ensure that 1 hour before I sleep, I put away all gadgets, every electronic device, and I basically allow myself to decompress of all that digital stimulation or screen stimulation. But what if I made that promise to myself and day in, day out for a full week, I don't keep that promise? It means that, or it will impact on my soul, because I will stop trusting myself. I will feel like I make these promises and I don't keep them. So what's the point, right? So maybe if I want to set goals, I can start feeling like I'm already set up for failure. There's no point. I will never keep to anything that I say to myself. Sometimes we make some unconscious or subconscious promises to ourselves. Oh, I will inevitably marry when I am 35, or I will never be caught dead in this kind of situation, or I will never marry such a person, or I will never relate or interact with somebody of this tribe or somebody from this part of town or whatever. Sometimes we make those self-promises subconsciously. We don't know. And if we break them, they have an impact on our souls. Yep. They have such a great impact on our souls, and we either don't trust ourselves or we disappoint ourselves, making it harder for us to, how do I put it? For us to jump over that hurdle and go on to greatness. Sometimes we remember that, oh, I've broken this promise to myself. I cannot be trusted. Or if you if you want to now make a promise to somebody else, you don't trust yourself to keep your word because you've broken your word to yourself. Maybe you miss an opportunity. That's another source of self-inflicted wounds. Maybe at a point there was an opportunity for a scholarship, or there was an opportunity for you to apply for a job that you really wanted, but you dilly-dallied, you procrastinated, and somehow the deadline passed. Or you had the chance to rent a particular apartment, but you moved around, you did not do what you were supposed to do, and you missed an opportunity, what you would have even described as the opportunity of a lifetime. Those things can impact on your self-esteem. It can impact on you trusting in yourself, in you setting goals from a place of confidence, in yourself. And then, of course, just natural mistakes. Well, I don't know whether the way to describe it is natural, but innocent mistakes, bad choices, things that you did that you shouldn't have done, things that you should have done, but you didn't do. Those things can impact on your soul. And for sure, they can cause soul wounds. We also have the inner critic. This one is very, very important. You have this voice in your head that sometimes is good for you. That is, maybe the person tells you, that voice in your head, right, is telling you, oh, you could have done this better. That may be good criticism, but you also have that same voice in your head that can say, you're no good, you never do this, you never, you'll never amount to much. Or the inner critic is saying, Shebi, you were supposed to do something and you didn't. That shows that you will never be able to do that thing. Or the inner critic is saying, what's the point of making plans when you're just going to break them? The inner critic can say, nobody likes you. The inner critic can say, your dad did not accept you. What makes you think that someone else will? Or you are not good enough for this job. I mean, there's so many things that the inner critic tends to come up with. That is that extra critical part of ourselves, that voice in our head that we listen to that is extremely negative and is always loud. It can cause like extreme or high impact soul wounds. There's so much to say about the inner critic, but one major thing is for you to start to, in order to quiet the voice of the inner critic, is for you to start practicing self-compassion. Self-compassion just means that the same the same degree of compassion and the same degree of compassion, of consideration, of care you would give to a friend. Let's say a friend came to you and said, I'm no good, I don't do this, I'm a failure, I am not good enough for this job. How would you treat your friend? You would maybe say to the friend, take it easy, don't worry, it will be all right. Maybe it's just a circumstance. I know you can make it if you put your mind to it. The same way you would encourage your friend, you have to start practicing it on yourself. You may need to open your mouth and speak out as that voice in your head is saying something totally different, right? A major thing that I want to pull out that when it comes to third-party wounds, which is the last category of the how of soul wounds is the chokehold of secrecy. And you'll see what I mean as we go along. Part of the how of soul wounds includes offense or betrayal or infidelity. If maybe you were cheated on, maybe you were married and experienced infidelity, or you were in a romantic relationship, a partnership, and someone offended you, even a friendship. Someone did something so bad to you, someone violated your trust. Secrecy has a way of making it even worse. If maybe it's something that, quote unquote, is dirty linen and should only be exposed to a few people, if you turn that around and so many people know about it, it can have a negative effect on you, right? It can deepen or intensify the degree of the wound that you experience, the pain that you experience. Sometimes these soul wounds can come from rejection, separation, or divorce. Sometimes these soul wounds can come from abuse. So this is one type of soul wound that a lot of us are familiar with: mental abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse. The closeness of the person. Remember, we talked about the who, right, of soul wounds. The closeness of the person, the physical location, right, the vicinity within which that abuse took place is also very important. It plays a part, in the intensity of your wound. It plays a part in how long you may be on that journey to healing, how easily, I don't think it's that easy, but how easily, for lack of a better word, you are able to forgive the offender, right? Even if somebody was not a direct offender, the role that the people around you had or played in the event. Let's say they just stood by and they watched this bad thing happen to you, or they couldn't stand by and they turned away when that thing was happening to you. I mean, there's so many things, and the involvement of the parties or the human beings within your vicinity, those ones that are close to you, those that were supposed to maybe defend you. It really, really has it has an impact on the type of soul wound or the depth of the soul wound that you experience. Okay, so at the very beginning of, or when people were registering, some of us sent questions. I also asked people to, I'm looking at the comments. I'll get to the comments soon, but I also asked people when they were registering to say what type of soul wounds they've experienced. And so some of the ones I've mentioned were also filled within the registration. Some people said sudden change of physical environment, emotional or mental abuse, physical abuse, broken self-promises, romantic betrayal or heartbreak, loss of employment, sudden change in physical environment. So I'm reading now, sexual abuse, rape, what else? Loss of a loved one. So people have experienced events that led to soul wounds. It is it's not something that is uncommon, but what we do about it, how we are able to dissect and treat those wounds, is very important. If you've experienced any of these things, any of the examples that I have given, whether as a child, as a toddler, as a teenager, as an adult, if you've experienced it, regardless of the when, it is important for you to face it intentionally. There are some times when maybe it happened a long time ago that our minds intentionally choose to forget, to protect us so that we don't have to deal with the pain over and over again. But if we put them aside and we drown them in in something else and you choosing to be happy on the surface, it will still bubble up at the, underneath everything. It will still bubble up and come up to the surface if you are, let's say, triggered. If something happens, or if you hear about the same thing happening to other people around you, that pain can resurface. It is just natural. So you can't afford to be to have a loose or unintentional perspective to soul wounds that you have experienced. It's important for you to face it. It's important for you to acknowledge it. It's important for you to talk to somebody, preferably someone who is qualified to treat it or to dissect it, to talk about it with you, to open up that wound, and then for you to for it to be treated. Think about a physical cut. Sometimes the first thing you're supposed to do is not for you to just take plaster, like a Band-Aid, and just slap on it. No, sometimes you have to clean the wound. You have to apply antiseptic to the wound. Sometimes you may even need to leave it open so that it's just air, right? That the wound is what's the word? The wound is exposed to. Sometimes, depending on the kind of wound, you may need to wrap it and wrap it and wrap it so that it will heal from the inside. Different kinds of wounds necessitate different kinds of treatment. So please don't be unintentional about treating your soul wounds. Any example, if it falls within any of the examples, or even if I haven't given your own case as an example, whatever the case may be, if you have experienced soul wounds, please do not take it for granted. I have a few questions here. So I'll start. I think I have about 4 questions that people sent in. I will do my best to answer them. And if you're listening now and I haven't answered, when I'm done, I haven't answered any of the questions you had, maybe that you didn't send in, but you have now, please feel free to put it in the chat and I'll do my best to answer it. If we run out of time, I may do another video to answer extra questions, okay? So how do I relate? Question number 1 is, how do I relate with an abusive parent? This person has experienced emotional and mental abuse, and I believe that it came from a parent. A parent, remember, is that the who is within the nuclear family. So that person is very close to them. You can imagine the degree of pain that person is experiencing with this with this emotional or mental abuse. How do I relate with an abusive parent? Now, depending on how old you are, how financially independent you are, I would always advise that you dissociate physically from an abusive parent. Because if you are still living within the same environment, physical environment, if you are still living in the house of an abusive parent, the person will continue to abuse you because they are in a position of power. Most parents that are abusive, they are abusive unconsciously. They don't know that they are doing it. Sometimes they even excuse it to themselves and believe that they are parenting. They believe that they are just being a good mom or being a good dad or being not loose, not what's the word? Not spoiling you, right? They believe that if they're correcting you, they believe that if they're correcting you, they're doing what is expected of them. They are doing the right thing. So they are doing this unconsciously or subconsciously. If you have the opportunity, get out of that physical environment. Number 1, that's number 1. Number 2, they are still your parents. So if you have the opportunity to leave their immediate physical environment, meaning don't live with them, then you are all the more blessed or lucky, right? So you can limit the relationship, the amount of interaction that you have with them. So it gives them less of a chance to emotionally and or mentally abuse you. If you are not able to get out of the physical environment, then you may need to create boundaries. mental boundaries that make it hard for what they are saying or what they are doing to get to you. You may need to create actual walls in your mind so that when they start to speak, most of the time, words are the highest sources of mental or emotional abuse. So when they start to speak, you need to have another form of monologue going on in your head. So whatever it is that they are saying, I don't want to repeat or give examples of words that parents say or phrases parents say that are emotionally or mentally abusive, or whatever it is that they are saying that you know does not help you, does not serve your mental well-being. You must have another internal dialogue going on in your mind. So maybe you have your confessions, maybe you have your own affirmations talking about who you are and whose you really are. Because yes, they are your parents physically, but you are a child of God, right? Not you're a child of God spiritually. You're a child of God, meaning you ultimately are sourced from the Father. Okay, so you may need to have those positive affirmations and a different level or standard of monologue going on in your head while they are doing their own thing. That creates a wall and a boundary so that their own negative words cannot come into your mind, right? The next thing I would say is that because they are still your parents, you have to do your best to be respectful. You still have to be respectful. You still have to honor them because of the position that they have in your life. It is non-negotiable. So you would not react to them with disrespect. You would not react to them by speaking ill of them. The really great thing for you to do as much as you can is to pray for them. Okay, so in most cases, silence is a great way of responding to an emotional or mentally abusive parent. So leave the physical environment if you can. If you can't, the physical environment to limit the degree and the number of interactions that you have with them. If you cannot leave that physical environment, then have your own internal monologue, right, that is going on. Relate with them with honor, pray for them, be as silent as you can whenever you can. Next question. How do I transition to healing? So like I said, we were given the example of a physical wound, that different wounds have different treatments. The first and most important thing is for you to acknowledge that you've experienced such an event, a negative event, and it is having such an impact on your soul. Then, like I said, you will need to get in touch with somebody that can help. Someone trusted, someone qualified. Sometimes they could be a close friend. Other times they may need to be a mental health professional or a coach. It's extremely important for you to reach out and ask for help. On your journey to healing, remember that it is a journey, so it's going to take some time. It is a process, and you will not jump from that extreme sense of pain and heartbreak, regardless of what type of pain it is. You will not jump from that degree of pain, that level of high level of pain, to suddenly completely forgetting about it, or being able to look at your offender and say, oh no, everything is good, I'm fine, it's like nothing ever happened. It's very, very unlikely that you will be immediate, right? It's very unlikely or it's rather, it is likely that when you think about the event, you may still have a tight feeling in your throat. You may still have sweaty, clammy palms. You may still have a high palpitation in your chest. It happens. And it just means that there's still more work that needs to be done in your journey to healing. The person that asked that question, please reach out privately, and let's talk. Another question which is related to this person says, how can one be healed? We've talked about it, different treatments for different soul wounds. Another person says, how do I heal completely from a heartbreak or disappointment from a loved one, even though the effect is still obvious? Now, I'm not sure. Because you haven't given too much detail, I don't want to make assumptions. So when you say that the effect is still obvious, maybe maybe the person was supposed to get married to you. I'm just thinking about possible what's the word? Possible scenarios here, because you said, how do I heal completely from a heartbreak or disappointment from a loved one? So maybe if the person you were supposed to get married to the person, but you weren't, maybe if someone cheated on you, whether in a romantic relationship or in a marriage, and the effect is still obvious. I mean, an effect could be a pregnancy out of wedlock, right? And you're seeing the results of that cheating, that infidelity. I would say, in my professional opinion, that because you are human, when you see the effect, a baby or a child, or you hear the name of that person who is displaying or manifesting the effect of that heartbreak or disappointment, it is inevitable that you will still have a bitter taste in your mouth. It's inevitable that you may still feel one kind towards the whole thing. No one can expect you to immediately, or even within 10 years, right? You may not be able to immediately say that, oh, I'm good, I'm fine, it's all good. If you are triggered, the pain, the memories may still come up again for you. And it looks like those are all the questions that I have that were pre-sent. If any of us within the meeting right now, have any questions, please go ahead and ask. You can type it in the chat. Okay, I see comments that people are taking notes. They were following. Okay. Ifunaya says that she experienced a culture shock. She experienced a soul wound when she moved, relocated from Lagos to Abuja. That's correct. So, I mean, if you change cities, you find that it can impact on you. You may be wondering, how do people do it here? It's a new job, it's a new environment, there's a new way people do things, they go to lunch or they don't go to lunch, they sit at their desk, or they have happy Fridays or thirsty Thursdays, and you're not used to it. Or these kind of people in my former place or in my former household or neighborhood, everybody was caring, warm and everything. Maybe in this new environment, everybody just minds their business. It may just be different, right? And that difference is something that can affect you emotionally and mentally. Correct. Okay. Tuni, I think that's the way to pronounce your name. Tuni says that sometimes I lose opportunities for no good reason. Yeah, people miss opportunities, and it could just be as a result of mindsets and an ideology in your brain, something that happens when you see and identify an opportunity, but you don't do everything you can to take advantage of that opportunity. You don't have the sense of urgency, you procrastinate, you maybe say to yourself, I'm not qualified anyway, or it's not people like me that they are looking for in the job or on this scholarship or on this board directorship or something, right? And you just self-sabotage. You don't apply early enough, or you do the wrong things just so that you would prove back to yourself what the thoughts that you already had in your mind. And then it's almost like it's this vicious cycle where you're like, you see, I said it. It's not me that they're looking for in the place. But it's really, really what's the word? It's it's a real thing, and it will take a professional or whoever you're speaking to dissect, to ask questions, to go and dig deeper, to talk about other experiences that you've had. You may be able to identify patterns, and that will help you. Then you will know what to do. Then you will know the tiny steps to take that will, sometimes in a circle, all you need is just a little deviation, and it can bring about a different result completely.